Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. This is likely something you've not seen before. It's a branded but unlabeled flex compact impact wrench, something the brand doesn't make quite yet. It's unlabeled because it doesn't have a model number, and that's because it's a field test prototype tool with some weird stuff going on inside we've not seen before. Something we're becoming increasingly lucky around here crossing paths with, like these images of the M18 high torque before it dropped this field test DeWALT big guy. It's just one of the benefits of refusing to work with brands and always paying for our own tools. We can dive into, often literally like we will be today, the less savory underground rumors and prototypes like these 1/2 inch and 3/8 compacts, or the future 3/4 or 1 inch impact from the same brand we're definitely not going to mention here and would totally show if we had one. These are 5.05 to 5.1 inches in length, and it puts them right in the mix with the 5-inch DeWALT DCF 921 Super Spicy Compact, and even the shorter 4.9-inch Milwaukee M18, which it compares closest to, but also the M12, which is what we usually recommend since it basically makes the same beans in an overall smaller footprint. But these are small in the head. Compare it to the Hyper Tough from Walmart we recently tested and didn't exactly blow us away. Shorter than that and similar in head width. And then the M12, the calipers say the flex is longer, but to my eye, they look about equal in the head. Of course, the rub with flex, or really any 24-volt tool, is always going to be that battery though. Needing to have 6 cells in series to make a 24-volt max battery, even if you make the head as tiny as possible, it's going to not be small overall. So our proposition today is, are these good enough to make buying their 3.5 amp hour stacked lithium battery worth it? At $180 for 3.5 amp hours worth of capacity, we've long felt it's on the rougher end of value propositions for a battery that we haven't wanted to pretend that you need. The 6 amp hour M18 Forge, on the other hand, is $10 to $19 more and replaces an HD 12.0 in that one's case. But if these compacts can do what Flex has been doing with their other tools, their mid-torque included, it might make the size redefining of these stacked pouch cells, which don't have to be so long, pencil out for us and maybe you too. Now, stories from people in the trades with field test prototypes, or just messages from those who have them, are always a bit funny. Guys signing up for 1/2 inch high torques and getting sent a 3/4 inch with no sockets, so they have to buy some very not free 3/4 inch impact sockets to use it. Guys signing up for 1 inch impacts and getting a new impact driver in its place. Or this poor individual who owned no flex to begin with, but when they dropped off this 1/2 inch compact and 5 amp hour battery, they provided no charger. Now, this is a person whose addresses and social media we vet as usual, but I do get a chuckle out of these small oversights, so we're going to send back these 2 impacts when we're done with them today with one of our chargers so they can actually finish their assignment past 1 battery worth of charge. But back to our assignment today, let's throw these on the dyno with increasingly stupid and impractical batteries, just for our amusement on that part, and see how they compare to the DeWALT DCF 921 Little Atomic Beast and the Milwaukee M18 or M12, which we use a bit interchangeably at times. They make very similar power. $189/168, and here's the flex prototype. We're going to be showing the 3/8 for now, but we'll also show you overall how the 1/2 inch compares in later tests as well. $216, not a cordless record quite, because the Makitas in 18 and 40 volt, but those are a bit of a different length class in some ways. I'm sure this even comes across on camera, but this hits super fast. We estimate, based on footage, around 20% faster hitting than either the DeWALT or Milwaukee. And that certainly helps for shorter tests. The consensus around here is that this ring light it uses is pretty cool as well, much like the Skill, also made by Chervon. It's a welcome amount of light. Likely more useful for the 3/8 than the 1/2 inch model as socket size grows. It can block some of that light, but they do push it to the edge on these new models, and I'd say it works pretty well. Let's head over into reverse, max torque, 10 seconds, median test of 3 as usual. Here's all 3 on screen. Again on top, 277/259, and that atomic is no slouch. It's basically number 1 in the size range in cordless. Best case scenario though, that's their best rather than median run. Doing 15 seconds of reverse tells us the whole picture here. Let's see it. $301, which is damn good, but somehow beaten out by that atomic at the end with 319. The first time yellow is on top on the day, but we also haven't shown you the half-inch drive yet, which looks like this. $294, surprisingly. We experienced this as just a loss, basically lower results, but data shows it comes out quite a bit harder out the gate. This is a trend we see on most 3/8 versus half-inch impacts, and as luck would have it, when you average out their performance per second, both tools come out to an exact 231, perfect balance. Okay, so let's see what change, if any, our 6 amp hour stacked lithium battery makes. I feel maybe this is their best battery in terms of size, price, performance, but on a little tool, not so much of a guarantee to do anything. The half-inch turns out to like it the most and saw a very slight gain over the 3/8 in peak, so that's this. Oh, and the DeWALT's going to be using a 15 amp hour just because there's no kill like overkill. The DeWALT improves to 338 and the Flex to 330. Nice. Overall in person, the DeWALT feels like it's hitting harder. The Flex puts up the numbers, no doubt, but it mainly just feels super fast and powerful, but mainly fast. Okay, so lastly, the 10 amp hour stacked lithium, which looks almost as silly as the 15 did on the DeWALT. We don't usually recommend larger batteries on small impacts and drivers. You're not guaranteed to see an improvement anyways. And in this case, yeah, the Flex is somehow making less than the 6 amp hour stacked lithium, in even less than the original 5 amp hour battery did at 292 foot-pounds, down from 294 with the 5 amp hour. Smells like melting glue. Super hot. Ridiculously hot. Yeah, kind of stinks. So yeah, no tool enjoys a life of luxury on our test days. We do 3 test runs for any run that you see on screen, but at a pretty standard pace for any impact we test. We're talking Milwaukee, Metabo, Amazon brands, and the Flex got around 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than most and smelt like newly drying epoxy. Making less and less beans with more testing, it never beat that 330 mark later in the day, which is a bit on trend for many Flex tools we test that we find. This is just a prototype, of course, but in general, their tools go ham and often at the expense of additional heat, and that's whether we're talking about their saw, their impact driver, or their drill. They perform and then perform differently when that hot. Let's take a look inside and see its top secret tidbits. And right off the hop, we're going to see something I've never seen in an impact, and that's an automotive fuse, a standard size, not even a mini, and a 40 amp one at that. This is a tiny brushless motor. We're talking 5/16 thick, some of the smallest I've ever seen. That's micro, smaller than the Hyper Tough by far, and yet we're willing to send 40 amps to it and the wiring that requires to go along with it. That's in the range of 850 plus watts to this thing before it pops a fuse. So I can see why some of the other higher performance batteries made that needle move, and also why it's pumping out a lot of that heat, assuming a 30 amp fuse wasn't enough. It's likely a prototype sort of production solution, but still interesting to us. That motor also has a bunch more windings than that little Hyper Tough tool as well. So this thing's like thin, but also thick at the same time. Into the meat and potatoes of any impact, we got here the hammer mechanism assembly. The hammer is pretty big, or about normal, but the hammer spring is also very thin. This allows for those super high impacts per minute as we experienced it, but more impacts per minute also generate more heat, like impact drivers often do. And really, it's sort of built like, feels like, performs like, on the curve, a converted impact driver to impact wrench. Like the modded drivers that we and some of our viewers often make, putting an anvil on an impact driver, which for Flex is a good recipe. Their impact driver is a monster with no anvil we've seen that fits on it. But maybe let's take a look at the stats overall and see what we're looking at here. So straight up, this is going to be a lot of BS fill in the blanks because, yeah, we don't know its model number, we don't know its claimed torque or price, but I have a feeling it's going to be very close to this guy up here based on performance and their recent pricing. So let's just say that for now, but when I'm wrong, we'll update that when we buy one. So we're looking at 22, 28, and 30 points. That's spicy stuff right there. About 5 inches long, and that's good for 59.6 foot-pounds per inch of length. Then a solid 100% if advertising 300, and 22.7 points if selling for 199, totaling 262.3, putting it in second place here, and well, fourth overall in cordless, including the larger Makitas. But while peak numbers were similar to the DeWALT with the stacked lithium, we were looking at 249 foot-pounds per second averaged, which is still mega, but it does feel like an incredibly quick impact wrench. It should be able to dominate a lot of fasteners in a row, zipping them all off and plenty of beans to go along with it. I am curious though how it would do on rusted stuff, though many people with modded impact drivers seem to like those just fine. It is, I think, likely worth picking up a 3.5 amp hour stacked lithium to make the overall size smaller, so we'll be doing that ahead of its official release. But their time here was brief and now at an end, so we'll need to buy those finished ones to know for sure, maybe with a few different bits inside and less smelly hopefully. We'll find out along with you if you click subscribe. Thanks for watching.